think we might be live. Let's see. Pull the chat window out while I wait to find out if we're live and if I'm just talking to myself as usual or not. Pop out chat. May or may not load. Come on. And, oh yes, record. Thank you, Heather. That is now recording. Are we started yet, or are we just sitting here? Something might be happening. It's kind of stuck. Okay. There we go. It looks like we are live. And let me pull my chat back up. You guys will have to let me know. I'm still having problems where, like I've been having lately, where the... Is it doing it again? Please don't be doing it again. It's not. Okay, it's working. Where for some reason my easel cam keeps freezing up. I don't know if it's that I need to replace webcams, laptop, what? I can't afford to replace any of it right now, so all my money goes to vet bills. So we will... just let me know and I'll have to restart it if that happens again. Because that has been happening the last few videos for sure. Okay, let's see. Let me get the chat window going, and there we go. Okay, so the first thing I need to do on this one is paint it black. This is the Fredrix. Or I should say not necessarily this, although maybe it would be this. Video is sponsored by Fredrix. They gave me the canvas. They don't actually pay me. So let's go ahead and get started on this. I'm going to start by using a tack on bristled filbert brush. And the reason that I'm going to go with a filbert and not a flat, whenever possible, I like the filberts if I'm going to try to get something to be very smooth, because my start and stop points with the brush aren't as harsh as they are if I use a flat brush. So I'm going to get a little bit of water on my brush. I'm using some Mars Black. These are the Liquitex Basics, and I just need to fill that in. I'm probably going to put 2 coats, so I don't care if this is perfectly smooth at this point. And now I will end up painting the edges black, but I'm probably, well, maybe I'll paint that one. I'm not going to worry too much about my edges making them perfect until after the live stream, because no one needs to watch that. You know how to paint a canvas black. And no, this one actually isn't Dory. Dory is considered, or would be a hippo tang. This one is a powder blue tang. These guys are beautiful and have a tendency to get sick and have a lot of health issues, and it's not a fish I see myself ever owning. Well, I don't see myself ever having a fish tank big enough for one of these, so I just paint them. The fish that I can't have or can't keep alive, or same thing with coral, if it's a type of coral that I can't keep alive for some reason, well, I have a tiny tank now. I just paint pictures of them, and then I can have them in my house. Like dolphins, same thing. Turns out they don't let you keep dolphins in fish tanks. Who knew? But I can paint all the pictures in the world of them and hang those all over my apartment instead. That's basically what's happening here with this powder blue tang. It is not a fish that I plan to ever keep. Oh, I don't have all my lights on. But I can paint them. So I have a board behind my easel, just a white, it's like a really thick piece of, God, what would this call? Almost like, I don't know, it's paper. It's thinner than a board, but anyway, I have that there just so that I don't get paint all over the pretty oak wood of the easel, since it's still new and I still have that weird, I don't want to mess up my brand new easel that I saved forever for. So that is why that is behind it. Kind of ugly, but once I get the base done on paintings, I can remove it. This one I'll probably just leave all of tonight. Okay, so there is coat 1. I'm going to put another coat on this. Probably, hold on, actually, maybe not. Maybe I'll just put make this a little bit thicker. Because I can see bits, hold on, I'm sticking my head in there. Yeah, I can see bits where I've added a bit too much water, and so part of the canvas, like the paint, isn't in there as much as I would like. So we'll just make sure I've got all of that in there. Now for this one, I'm experimenting a bit with what I'm going to do on the background. So I don't know how this is going to come out. In my head, it looks amazing. I don't know what'll happen once the painting is done. So I'm going to go ahead and take the hairdryer to this and dry that before we can start the airbrushing section. Whoa, what just spit all over that? What was in this? Or were those bubbles? I wonder if I just popped a bunch of bubbles that I created, or if that's actually crap that came out of my hairdryer. Hold on. Okay, hold on. I have to find this out so I know what to do about it. I think trying to think what I used recently that would have spit anything out of the thing. So, let's see. What I'm going to do is dry this. I don't know if you can see the white dots there a bit. I'm going to dry this because it's a possibility, because of the way I did this so quick, I created little bubbles in the paint, and when I put the hair dryer on it with a high force, it popped them. Although I can't think of anything that would be dried in this. I use this hair dryer often enough it wouldn't build up dust or anything, so I think that's what just happened. But once I dry it, I can touch it and I'll be able to tell. Yeah, those are just bubbles that popped. That scared me because I've not seen it happen that extreme, but I knew I was creating bubbles by going through as quickly as I just did. So that makes sense. Good thing I planned on doing a couple coats anyway, so that'll solve that problem. If this works out, I may end up doing a few backgrounds with this concept. I think it'll be cool. I guess we'll find out, huh? So let's go ahead and add another coat of paint. We will cover those up. And why I needed that to dry, because I needed to see if when I touched it, if I could feel texture, if anything was coming up, and it wasn't. It wasn't wiping away. That was definitely the white of the canvas that showed through from the little I painted too fast bubbles. So when you work the brush like I'm doing here really quick, and I'm mixing it, not a lot of water, but just a little bit, and it just can create bubbles. You know, if I work slower, I'm not as likely to get that, but I'm going kind of quick through this. Before I forget, because I always forget till the end, make sure check out our moderators channels, Joseph Fincham and Nick Edgar. Why do I always hesitate when I go to say Nick's name? I don't know why my brain just shuts off for some reason. But anyway, check out their channels. They've got art channels here on YouTube. I know Nick's been playing with the same airbrush I'm using, so that, or not Nick, Joseph, so that's pretty cool. I remember your name when I'm using it for the wrong person. Let's see if I got those all the way in the little crevices this time, or if I'll end up popping bubbles again. There we go. I'm going to put this on low this time so it doesn't pop as fast, but I might end up with that again. I can see where the little bubbles are hitting. Now I think I'm good. Okay, so I'm going to let that set for a minute. And it almost looks like there's little white dots on there, but there aren't. It's the light hitting it. Yeah, that's just the way the light is hitting the glare from the canvas. How odd that that's picking up on camera. These lights that I use, I love them because they make it so that I can see it's clamped to the easel, and it makes it so I can really see what I'm doing. The problem is it's like kind of bad for filming. I don't know why. I end up with a lot of problems with it distorting. The color is not great, or the glare is really bad on camera, but it's wonderful for what I can see, and I guess that matters more. So let's go ahead. I'm going to let that set for a second. Make sure we're caught up on yeah, a lot of those, Joseph, the videos out there, they have a lot of like scare tactic things with acrylic paint, like never do this with acrylic. One of the ones that drives me crazy, there's a lady who made a video, and I think it's hilarious. She had to turn off comments because everyone, I'm sure, was trying to tell her, you're completely wrong. Like, she had some information correctly. I don't think she was intending to be wrong. I think she misunderstood. So I don't know. But the fact that she turned off comments tells you too many people were coming at her and saying, hey, that's not correct. But she was basically saying you're going to underbind your paint if you use water, and you never do this and never do that. And it's like, I mean, yes, there's some truth to that, but you'd have to use a lot of water to cause a problem with it. And once you varnish it anyway, it's not coming off. So there was just so much misinformation. And the thing for me that made a headache, or caused a headache for me, is how many people then come to my videos going, I heard this, is this true? And so I'm having, to explain, no, that's not total. Like, it's not that everything is wrong in the video. It's that a lot of it is over exaggerated, and it's like that little bit of truth misinterpreted. So I've been painting with acrylics, and with these specific acrylics too, for, gosh, I started in, I want to say around 1995, 98, right around there. I don't know. It must have been around 95. I've been painting with these for a very long time, and I thin mine with water all the time, not a problem. And so a lot of these videos it's popular. It's, if you make a video like the top 10 this, the top 10, if you can make something that makes people go, oh my gosh, am I doing something wrong? They're going to click on that video. So it gives incentive for YouTubers to make videos like that. And while some of the information may be true, so often it's just not. It's like this scare tactic thing for views. So that's always a bit frustrating. Elaine asks, can you use touch-up texture titanium white mixture with graphite, or is it too white? I don't think it would look good. You can use it, but I wouldn't like how it looked because it would be too white. But it is something you can do if you need to. Sarah said, if using water with acrylics is bad, then I'm in big trouble. I've been using a ton of water with my acrylics lately. Yeah, I use it all the time. What happens is if you use too much water, it's like the little molecules don't bind together and they can kind of separate. People talk about it'll crack, it'll chip, it'll this, it'll that. I don't know, maybe if you're using crappy canvases or crappy acrylics, I've thinned mine. I mean, I've got paintings here where I've thinned a lot to where that would technically be considered underbinding, but I do so many layers, and once it's varnished, it doesn't come off. I used to do that on furniture that I would stand on and use as like stools and stuff. It does not move. It's hardy once things have that varnish on. So now the downside is if you have caused some underbinding, or you don't have the paint, if you've used too much water and you do another glaze, that first glaze, if you're like scrubbing too much or anything like that, it can lift those first layers if you use too much water. So that can happen. That's the biggest negative I've ever seen, and you just paint over it. So it's not a big deal, but okay, let's see. Maya said, still my fingers crossed to get airbrush videos soon. If you mean soon, do you mean in like the next 5 minutes? Because that's about what I'm going to be starting. Here is the background on this. It's just a little bit of airbrushing, but yeah, we are starting that. Let's get my phone out of the way so I don't get airbrush paint all over it. So what I'm going to use, I'm just making sure this is dry. It's a little tacky still. Probably because I put too thick layers though. I'm using a stencil that I made myself. It's a damask stencil. I used a silhouette, the Cameo silhouette little cutter guy, and I'm going to, if I can find the tape that I have clearly lost, I guess I have to go find that. Hold on, let me go grab my tape. Stay. So I'm just going to tape my stencil to my canvas. Well, sort of, so that it doesn't move. Oh yeah, Sarah, if you're getting a water to where it's coming out like watercolor, that is too much paint. You are definitely underbinding then. So I'm going to move this forward so that the stencil can lie flush. And I want to try to keep this stencil straight. So I've got to put a little effort into that. What I'm going to do, I'm just taking these dots and lining them up at the top because I know those are... As long as I can go for pretty close, they should be good. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take white, actually, I think I want gray. Hold on, I need a different airbrush paint. If I can find it. I'll just bring all the bottles over here and figure out what I want. Let me see if any of my grays are going to be opaque enough to show up. It might not. I might make my, yeah, you know what? I bet I'll just make my own so that it's opaque. If I can find my black. Oh, shading gray, transparent. I don't know if that's going to work for me. Like I said, I'm experimenting, so this isn't one of those times where I know exactly what I'm doing. I mean, I have a general idea of what this will come out like, but... yeah, definitely doing some experimentation. So I'm going to take my airbrush. I'm going to start by putting a couple of drops of Airbrush Flow Improver in. Patrick said, would you recommend Masonite board as a canvas for something cheap? I don't use it. You'd have to do more research into it. I really can't say. You need to make sure that there's, like, is it intended for art, or is it the kind that you get, like, can't you get stuff like that at the hardware store? You need to make sure it's not chemically treated with anything. Actually, let me make sure water is running through this before I start dropping stuff into it, because I hadn't cleaned it in way too long and cleaned it before the live stream, so let's double check that. So I would double check that. I don't want to give you bad advice. Yeah, that's fine. But it's not something that I use. For the watercolor, Sarah, I'd probably still go with hot press, but I'd experiment with both hot and cold. But I think hot, just because that's always been my preference. Clarence said, lately I've been using airbrush medium instead of water, and that seems to take care of the underbody issues. And that's something that you can do too. I just don't like the results I get when I use water or the different mixing mediums and stuff. I usually like the results I get better in most cases with water. So that is why I do this. Now, what I can do, I have two options here. I want the pattern to be kind of a gray, like a medium gray. So I can either airbrush them white, then lightly go over it with black, or I can mix gray. I'm thinking airbrushing it white and lightly going over with the black is going to make my life a million times easier than trying to mix. So I just changed my mind again on what I'm doing. Tamara wants to know how the studio assistants are doing. They are both good. Jessie, we thought we were going to lose her back in December, but it turned out it was an autoimmune disorder, and she's responding really, really well to the prednisone. So she's doing great. Echo had a scary tumor removed from her foot, so we have to wait and see if it comes back. But, I mean, she's doing good, other than we have to wait and see. So, okay, here I'm going to just lightly go over this with white. Now, it's very important, make sure if you're using the stencil like this, tape it down, because it's going to want to slide and move and give you kind of funny things. Now, it's not a huge deal if it's not perfect, because my fish is going to be the main attraction here. Actually, that came out kind of perfect. I don't even have to put black over it. Okay, we're just going to leave it like this, and I will show you. Let me clean the airbrush really quick. Actually, I'm going to be doing white. Don't want to, yeah, I may as well run water through it real quick. Decisions. So this is the thing when you're an artist. Everyone has a tendency to feel like you have to know everything all the time. You don't. You're always going to be experimenting and trying things. And I change my mind like seriously 5 times before I actually make a decision. Because I'm always trying to think like what's going to make this easier? What's going to work best for different things? So I'll go ahead and remove my stencil. I just want something very, very light. Now, if you want your stencil to be more precise and super even, paint it by hand. Or, I mean, you can use the sponge effect, like how stencils are like most people use stencils. But for me, whenever I do this, I like this kind of like worn. See how areas are lighter than others? I just like how that looks. It's always been the look that I go for when I use stencils for these. Let me make sure that didn't freeze up, because it actually might have. No, we're good. So that gives me this guy. Let me move him back, make sure he's still on camera where he's supposed to be. Yep, we are good. And my next thing, so I don't just want the damask background. I actually want to create a look where it's almost like it's still underwater. So I'm going to airbrush my white here, lighten it up, put some rays of light coming down, and then I'm going to put blue just over where these are. Now, this looks like it has a bluish tint on camera. It's actually more of a, I'd say, a warm gray than the cooler gray you're seeing there. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put a couple more drops of Airbrush Flow Improver. Now, I'm not wearing a mask right now because I'm not doing very much airbrushing, but it's still a good idea safety-wise. If you're doing a lot of airbrushing and you're going to be breathing that in, use a mask, because some of these paints, even if it says that it's non-toxic, it may be. And actually, there have been reports where some of the companies said it was non-toxic, but it actually was less, or it wasn't as amazing, you know, it was still scary. Plus, even if it's non-toxic, one of the problems that I've had with airbrushing, years ago, I was working on something super big, didn't realize how much airbrush, this was when I first started airbrushing, didn't realize how, I had a cloud. I looked over my whole, it was in my living room at the time, cloud of airbrush paint, and I'd been breathing that in. So the paints I was using, completely non-toxic, but they coated my lungs to the point where I wasn't receiving the oxygen I needed. And it took that whole weekend. I want to say that happened on like a Thursday or a Friday, and it wasn't until Monday, Tuesday that I started being able to breathe without coughing constantly. So definitely be careful with that. If you are going to be airbrushing a lot or creating a lot of that cloud. The mask is just a good idea, a safe way to go. I just didn't grab mine, but this is small enough, I should be fine. Okay, so I'm gonna lightly come across here, just like I would an underwater scene where I'm getting that U shape. So it fades. We'll get the brightest point here. Now I'm gonna get some rays of light coming down. Now I'll have to go back once the fish is in. I'm gonna come back through and pull rays of light, most likely in front of him. Okay, I'm going to rinse the airbrush paint out of this thing and switch colors. And to rinse my airbrush, what I'm doing, I'm taking a spray bottle and I'm just spraying inside this into my water well, getting all that paint out. And whenever I put paint in here, I only need a couple of drops. A very small amount goes a really long ways. And I'm using a number 3 needle on this one. This is the Grex Airbrush. I am absolutely in love with their products. I did a review on them recently. Well, kind of a review. They're so nice because you can change the one setup. I can change or have multiple needles. They have kits, so it's like everything's interchangeable. Super, super nice. So I have, with this one gun, a 5 or 0.5. I have a 5 needle, 5 millimeter, whatever it is, and a 2 and a 3. Has this been opened? I don't know if I've ever used this one. Hold on. I may not have opened this one yet. Nope. And this is the white paint that I was using was the Holbein, and then this is the Golden's Airbrush paints. I bought a bunch of them and obviously have not used them all. Getting the lid off can be a pain in the butt. Oh my gosh, come off. I can never get my nail under these enough to really grab well. I'm about to break down and use my teeth. And then all the dentists cringed. Come on. I'm so close to having this up. I feel like this is going to be one of those times I tell a story about. Remember that time on the live stream I cut my finger off? I'm just using a palette knife, but still. Melanie said, what is wrong when an airbrush starts to kind of sputter? Is the paint too thin, or it can be anything? You may not have enough air pressure. You may have too much air pressure for how thin or thick the paint is. I mean, what? This is being ridiculous. I don't normally have this many problems with these things. I just can't get the lid started. There's so many things. So you want to check, maybe you need more air pressure. Maybe you need less air pressure. Maybe the paint is too thin. But you kind of have to balance everything. There we go. You have to balance everything. You need to have the right air pressure for the type of paint that you're using. It could just be clogged too. That's another option. I mean, there's so many different things that could cause it, so you have to start troubleshooting to find out what's causing your issue. But yeah, play around with changing the PSI, play around with changing the paint. Like if I use the Goldens or the Holbein, I don't have to thin these with water, so there's no issue of them being too thin. If if I use the Createx like I used to, now those ones I had a tendency to end up with being way, way too thin or too thick, and that was an ongoing battle for me. But it's really not an issue now. With these paints, so I never have to worry about that. I mean, it's kind of nice because it solves, when you're troubleshooting and trying to figure out why you're having a problem. I know it's not the paint. With me, most likely, with this setup, if I had paint splattering, either I've got a buildup, sometimes the little cap thingy on the front of the needle, the guard there, sometimes that will get a buildup. Sometimes it's because your airbrush is actually a bit clogged. Okay, I don't like this as well, maybe I do. I like it on the camera better than I like it in person. I'm trying to decide if I want to make it more blue or take black and create a bit of a vignette look. Vignette look. Why am I saying a look? That's not even a word. Around the edge. Decisions. I know I need more white coming through. Okay, a little bit more blue, and then I'm going to put a little bit more white with the rays of light coming through, and then we're going to start on the fish. I just put way too much blue in there. Whoops. This is one of the things, too, I've talked about before. Take photos of your work, whatever you're working on with your phones, and play with things, because what I was seeing in person didn't look as good as what it looked like on screen. And when I saw the screen, I was like, oh, I actually kind of like that. So now I'm just going to airbrush it until it looks like that one did, or what I'm seeing on screen. Okay, I'm going to clean this out. We'll get some more white rays of light. Actually, probably wait. Trying to decide if I want to wait on the white rays of light until after the fish is painted in so I can get some going in front of him. Yeah, I'll get some in now. See? Always indecisive. I'm also going to have to go clean out my water well in just a second. Where's my white? Because I poured too much airbrush paint in it. I don't want that in there while I start the fish. Animal Desire said, hey Lisa, I want to know how many layers would you use for Prismacolor with the Mona Lisa paint thinner. When I add 6 layers and apply the paint thinner, the color washes off. I'd have to see it to know for sure. It's not like it's not a math equation basically, which would make it way easier if it was. And it depends on the paper. It depends on how much pressure you added to each of those layers. Like there's so many factors. So I wouldn't say that there's like a set, this is the answer to that question. Yeah, Tamara, this is something for the Aquashella show. So I can't give you a definite this many layers. When it starts to, now the paper you're using, like let's say you're using Bristol Vellum, that has a tendency to really lift a lot and get bad pigmentation, like not the best pigmentation. What was the other one? The colored pencil paper that's actually intended for colored pencil. Oh my gosh, that gets horrible. Like that one, I really had a hard time getting the saturation. It depends. So like I said, it depends on the paper. The newer Fabriano Artistico that I kind of like it, I kind of don't. I can't decide. But I don't know if I like it enough I'd ever buy it again, but I definitely like it enough to use what I have here. I guess I should say that. But that paint or that paper, I find that the colored pencil is more likely to lift off of. But yeah, there's so many factors you're just going to have to play around with. The type of paper you're using is probably going to have the biggest impact on that. And how much paint thinner are you using? I mean, once you get, let's say you put on 3 layers, you blended with OMS, put another 3 to 5 layers, blend with OMS, put another 3 to 5 layers, each additional 3 to 5 layers and then OMS, you get to where more and more of that colored pencil is being lifted by the OMS. So that may be your problem too. Okay, hold on one second. Let me go rinse out my paint water and then we will get started on the fish. Okay, I am back with clean water. Let me get caught up on some of these questions really quick. Blue Tea Art said, thank you so much for the review of the Derwent Color Soft pencils and putting it on your website. Finding information for the Derwent Color Soft pencils was difficult to find. Yeah, I love Derwent. Their website, though, I always have a hard time for some reason finding some of the information I want. Let's see. What are my thoughts on gesso? I'm just getting back into acrylic after a 10-year break and haven't come across whether or not it's necessary. Well, it depends on the canvas you're using. If you're buying a canvas that already is gessoed like this one was, I don't need to add more gesso. The only time because all of my canvases I buy pre-gessoed. You have to have gesso if the canvas is like tan colored or like a cream color, then it probably isn't gessoed. It's like a raw canvas. Then you need to put gesso on it. If it's white, like solid white, it's probably already been gessoed. It should say, the label should tell you. But if it's already gessoed, you don't need to add more. The only time I add more is when I use the Fredrix Convexo canvases, because those are more like their red label. It has a little bit more tooth than what I like for fine detail, but I love that type of canvas. So I'll put 1 or 2 coats of gesso, sand it, and then I can go ahead and get that smooth finish. That's the only time that I add gesso. Put him up maybe right around there. This is why I like drawing everything out separately. I can kind of position it and make him right where I want him to be. So what I'm going to do is I've pre-drawn him out on tracing paper. Now I'm going to take transfer paper. This is, I believe this is Low Cornell one. If I don't have it in my list of my supply list, if you go to my website, I have them listed there under supplies. I'm going to slide this under. And hopefully I've got here it is. So this is just a little stylus, and I'm going to just trace over that, make this easier on myself since I already drew him out. I don't want to draw him out again. So this works really well to save time, but it also keeps my work really clean. So if I had to do any erasing, readjusting, I did that on the tracing paper and not on my actual canvas where I might have eraser lines or anything like that. I don't know why I'm drawing in that fin because I've got to make that solid under him first. I really don't need to put many details on him yet. I need the outline of everything though. Like the inside of the fish, I'm not going to sit there and like draw out the little ridges on the fins because I have to paint this a solid color. I would be painting right over it. So it really wouldn't do me any good yet. It's mainly this outer edge I want on there. I can come back and put in the details later after I get this in. And one of the things that a lot of people complain about they don't like with Liquitex Basic is that they're so translucent. Like if I want to paint yellow over the black, the yellow is obviously not going to show up. I'm just going to get this ugly weird green color. The reason or what you want to do is use opaque colors first and then put your color on top. So I'm going to paint most of this with white. Well, I'll mix white in with it. Is that everything? Close enough? Yeah, probably close enough. Okay. So this is what's really nice is now I'm just going to remove that. He's already on there. And I don't have to go through and erase lines. Any erasing that I had to do when I drew everything out is done on this paper. So on the tracing paper and just any cheap paper. I actually like cheaper, like generic tracing paper better than name brand. I recently bought some name brand and it's too thick. So it's harder for me to position and see exactly what's underneath it. So I really like cheap tracing paper better. Yeah, you're more likely to put holes in it, but I can see through it better. And for the way that I work, that's part of the point of the tracing paper for me is to readjust where I want everything. So now what I want to do, let's see, I need to get some paint on my palette. I'm going to need some white. Oh, another thing that you really want to watch, make sure, I guess we all paint things that we don't know. I guess I'm not a tiger expert or anything. I paint those all the time. But ideally, if you can know a bit more about your subject, that is going to be helpful. The reference photo for this guy, it looks like he has ick on his face or a virus. There's white spots that really shouldn't be there. Whether or not it's a parasite or not, I don't know for certain. But if somebody saw this same photo, you can get it over on Pixabay, they might want to include all those little polka dots. And it's like, no one wants to buy a painting of a fish with ick, because that's what it's going to look like if you paint those in there. if you don't know the subject you're painting and don't know that that's actually a parasite or a disease or a virus or whatever, your painting is probably not good. I mean, the person who's going to buy this painting is probably going to be somebody who knows marine fish. And they're going to know, I just painted parasites on my fish. So it's a really good idea to do a little research on whatever you're painting and have a better idea of what your subject should look like, or if something is really supposed to be there or not. What other colors am I going to need? I'll need some yellow. That's about it. This yellow is weird. It has this dry thing in the center. It doesn't come out where it's supposed to. I always have to take the whole thing off. Oh, I'm glad to hear you like it, Betsy. Yeah, this palette, it's amazing. This is it's a New Wave glass palette inside of a Masters or Master Sense. I don't know. It's linked in the video description. Inside of that, and it basically works like a big piece of Tupperware. And I keep a paper towel with a little bit of water, and this can easily be switched out so it doesn't get all moldy. But that will keep the paint in here with having water on that paper towel, and I put the lid on it, and it'll keep my main piles of paint wet. Like this is from 3 weeks ago, that black paint there, and it's still perfectly good. I'll have to, like, these parts start to dry, and you take a glass scraper, and you just scrape them away. Actually, I guess I could do that now. I don't need those black areas all over. I'm going to add a little bit of water so it'll lift easier. But it just scrapes right off, and it's such an easier way to clean the palette and to have a fresh area to work and mix, which was always a headache when I worked. I used to use foil or tin foil in like a pie tin. I've also used the palettes where you can lift the, do I have something I have to check? Nope, I'm good. Where you can like peel the paint off. Those are so impractical, such a pain in the butt. This setup is amazing. Yeah, it's really made my life easier. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm not even going to worry about where his fin is going to go. Here, I'm just going to go ahead and get his body blocked in with this powder blue color. So first, I've got to mix that color. Now, I'm going to use a fair amount of water with this, so I can actually mix like a powder blue color. When I get to the yellow, I'm going to paint it white, and then I'll put yellow on top of it so the yellow stays really yellow. The white is very opaque. I'm using an opaque white there so that it'll really cover. Crystal says, I have a large collection of cheap canvases from the craft store before I knew any better. Those I sand and gesso to get a smoother finish. Yeah, that's what, I used to do that a lot. Tavian said, would you recommend making an underpainting black and white for acrylics to help splotchy areas, or should I just add more layers? You can do a black and white underpainting with acrylics. I've done that. I mean, it's however you want to go. There's not a like right or wrong answer to that, but it is definitely a valid, that'll work. Melody said, do you put the wet paper towel on top or under the glass palette? On top. I don't want anything under because I'm really sensitive to mold, and like mildew smells drive me crazy. So yeah, we're going to avoid that whenever possible. So there's ultramarine blue. Let's see if that's going to be close enough or if I need to warm it up some. Yeah, that actually looks like it'll be the perfect color. I put out some cobalt blue, but I think the ultramarine worked better. So I'm just mixing that with a bit of water. Well, I'm glad I could introduce you to Ick, Joe. I'm really hoping. I just got 2 baby clownfish, and now I'm sitting here with, they're my only fish, so I didn't quarantine them. I don't have a quarantine setup, but I'm sitting here like, please don't get Ick. Please don't get Ick. I'm super paranoid about it right now. I definitely would not buy a painting of a fish that had Ick. Let's see. Sarah said, I've realized if my subject has a sunburn or tan lines, I don't need to include that in the piece. That is definitely true. Yeah, that would most people would rather you leave that out of their painting. So this color is more, it kind of looks grayish. It's not going to be my final color there, but it's a start. So let's go here. Now, what's funny is the white part of the fish, this is actually the color the white part will end up looking like. But I just want to get a fairly solid coverage so that I can put the color I really want over that. Jelaine said, tip on glass palette it's even easier to scrape off dried paint if you give it a spray of water or soapy water. I wouldn't even do soap because I don't want the soap. I'm not going to deal with soap on this. Just straight spraying water on it is all you need to make it easy enough to lift the color or the stuff off. But I try to avoid soap in most of my stuff where I don't, like I would not get this rinsed well enough to make sure I don't have soap mixing in with my paint. So yeah, just straight water really. I've never had any trouble getting anything off as long as, or with just water. So this is not really smooth enough. These guys are super, super, like the transition on these guys, really, really smooth on that color. So I do want to try to get rid of most of these brush strokes. I'm going to leave that. We can go ahead and add some of this color on the tail. But yeah, I used for years. You can use like I've known of people that use like a plastic plate, like the disposable plates for their palettes and things like that, because it seems cheaper, but in the long run, you spend so much more money on paint. I did this on the Aquashella painting I just did, well, it's back behind the curtain, but the one from the last live stream. I was being lazy, and I just grabbed one of, because I still have those pie tins. Mine actually aren't pie tins, they're for art, but I've been using those. I have some of those, and I put tin foil in it, and I'm like, okay, I'm using a big area. We'll just do this really quickly. It'll be fine. It's, it's not going to waste that much paint because I'm just doing the background. Well, I kept painting that night more than the background, so I just kept using those palettes and adding paint to it. I wasted so much paint, because of, you can't save it like you can on this. With this paint, all this that I'm putting in here, I'll be fine. This paint is from 2 weeks ago. You can see I just poked it. It's still wet. So I mean, the difference is kind of incredible how much longer you can keep paint. And so, yeah, it costs more, because I want to say the glass palette I got, I spent like 40 or somewhere between $40 and $45. And then I got the this thing, the like big piece of Tupperware, basically, that one that it's sitting in. Oh my gosh. I think I got those at Hobby Lobby, and because they carry them and they have the 40% coupon. Michael's may carry them too. That one I probably like $20, $25. So I mean, the initial investment seems high, but the amount of paint that I save is crazy. I need a smaller brush. Let's rinse that one. So still going with the filbert. I don't care if some of this blue gets into it, but I do want it to have more white just so I can kind of keep track of what goes where. Right now, he'll just look like a puzzle piece. I'm not really getting into shading or anything too much here. So what I'll come up with right now is going to look very flat, very almost like paint by number-ish. Well, not even as good as a paint by number, because there will be no shading. That's totally okay for your earlier layers. Oops, let's get a little bit more water. If you're finding where it gets bumpy, I don't know if it shows the little bumps on the edge there, but if you're getting a little bit of bumpiness there, add a little bit more water or a little bit more paint to your brush. That's a pretty good indication you need one or the other, or both, like I just did. Yeah, there's a, talking about, just being aware of the stuff that you post. There's a thing I follow on Instagram that posts like stuff from the ocean, and they keep posting photos of fish with parasites. And I always wonder, I'm like, I wonder if they know that's a parasite, because every time I see those posts, it makes me cringe and want to kind of unfollow them, because it's like, oh, I know the damage that parasite does. Not just ick, but like copepods or, copepods and some of the things that are like, I don't think that's pretty. That's like painful for the fish there. That's not the happiness I'm looking for when I follow a fish account. Tamara said, what do you think of an artist bouncing between other art forms? Do you think it would affect social media, acrylics to miniatures for me? I don't think so. I mean, some people will do different accounts. If I do something different, like, well, heck, sometimes I post pictures of my fish tank that has nothing, well, sort of something to do with art, but not a lot. And I've not lost people. If I did, whatever, they weren't giving me money anyway. I mean, they weren't paying for anything anyway. Anybody who is willing to buy a painting or wants to sign up for Patreon or wants to, they're not going to care if I show other aspects of my life. So I don't hesitate to post things that aren't, I mean, if I have a picture of me and my sister, I'm going to post that on Instagram too, even though that has nothing to do with my art. I'm okay with showing some of that. Now, the majority of my Instagram will be my art, but I don't think it's a problem to show other aspects of your life, or in this case, your other art forms. If it were me, I'd post it on the same account. I'm not saying that I'm an expert and that's absolutely what you should do, but I don't think it would be a problem, unless, I think the one time it would be a problem is if you were doing things where, let's say you liked to paint animals, but you also like to paint gory things. I would unfollow someone for painting gory things because not only am I not interested in it, it makes me cringe. It's like, whoa, crap, please don't, I don't want to see that stuff. Or let's say somebody was also a puppy mill or a backyard breeder for dogs or something that I was just like, okay, I will unfollow you for that because I completely don't support that and don't want to see that. Someone starts posting political crap. I don't even care if it's someone whose political views I agree with. You start posting political crap, I'll unfollow you. But you post something else cool that you make, I'm not going to unfollow you for that, if that makes sense. That's how I look at it anyway. Okay, I'm not saying I know I'm absolutely right on that, but I mean, I think so often when it comes to social media, you can look at things on how would you respond if somebody whose artwork you liked was posting stuff like that? Would it make you unfollow them? If not, then it's probably fine. I mean, the people who are following us on social media are other people. That's who we're trying to, I don't want to say impress, entertain. Maybe that's a better word. So I need a different brush right now. And of course, that is one I didn't bring over here with me. I think it would be fine. Oh, I do have that. No, you're not the right brush, but you'll work. How many times can I say right there? That was impressive. But yeah, I think you would be fine. I would not hesitate to post anything I created, anything I made. I posted photos where I was sanding furniture and staining it and made it look what I thought looked pretty cool. So, and I don't know if I lost anybody at all, but if I did, it's like they weren't really much of a fan in the first place if that was the reason they unfollowed me. So I don't see any problem with it. Fish lips. Probably should use a liner brush there and make my life easier, but I'm not. Okay, let's just make that a bit more opaque. And his face, I can almost, now I do need to change it a little just so he separates from the background, but that's actually kind of a decent color for this reference photo. I'm going to just go ahead and mix what I'm using with some black to get a grayish tone. And then I can, because it's actually a black area of the fish, but there are highlights there. But I can add more shadows from this gray tone first. So this is way too dark to start with. I'll have to lighten that up. And that's way too light. We'll just let that blend in. I'm going to rinse that and load the brush with just black. Let that blend up into it. Art of Raven D said, I do both erotic art and I do animal portraits. I keep the two separate websites. That is smart. That is very smart. That would be another example of two things that you're going to have people who are really not interested in the other. So that's a great example of why you would want to separate. Yeah, I think it just depends on what it is, whether or not you can keep it on the same account or not. Like, we can use Tim Schmoyer as an example, video creators. I follow him on Instagram, and his Instagram is mostly his personal, family stuff, but it interests me. I think he's a cool guy, and it interests me to see his family photos. I think they're really neat to see. So even though he's not all, well, especially on his Instagram posting about whatever videos. I don't even know if he posts anything about his videos on Instagram. I still follow it because I am interested in like his family's life and stuff. That sounds really stalkerish, but I mean, it's interesting. It's cool to see the family side, the personal side of people that you watch or follow their other content. So I'm not one either that thinks you need a different, here's my second YouTube channel, here's my third YouTube channel, or the same thing with social media. I personally don't think that's super necessary. That's just me. Unless, like what the Art of Raven D said, she's mixing erotica and other stuff that I wouldn't mix, or gore and other stuff, something that some people would be very turned away from, not interested in it, really don't want to see. So whenever possible, I like to mix the two. Now, on the flip side, let's say you are a mechanic or you work on cars, you do things like that, and you're an artist. I probably wouldn't put those on the same account unless it's paintings of cars. Like, that would definitely be something where if cars kept coming up on an artist I'm following, I'd be like, wait, why was I following this person? So that would be possibly another example. It's not that cars are going to like offend anybody or they really don't want to see them. It's just, it's not close enough. I think that craft things and art things can be close enough to be mixed. Blue Tea Art said, I don't have a large budget on art materials. My question would be, what would you concentrate on more, paper, brushes, or paints? Well, for paint, I don't use brushes unless it's like watercolor or Inktense or something like that. But it depends what medium. I'm going to need more information on that one. Which medium are you talking about? That may make it easier for me to answer more. Nick said, I'm way off topic, but how do you set up your camera so it's not in your way when you paint or draw? Trying to do this as close to straight angle, and it's driving me crazy. So my camera is actually on it's a music, booms mic, or crap, why can't I say it right? Boom mic stand. That's what it is. So it's actually for holding microphones, but I have an adapter that allows me to attach my camera to it. So the stand is back here. It comes straight out, and there's another angle or piece that comes out this way, and this is where my camera is. So that allows my camera to be a lot closer. If it was on a tripod, I couldn't. When I used to, if you remember my older videos, if you look back at any of them, I was coming at a harsher angle from the side. It's because it was on a tripod. But with this, it's got this arm that allows it to be over here, kind of over my shoulder without being really in my way. So that has been wonderful. If you're going to get one of these though, get the more expensive one. This one I think is about $100. There are some that are about $20. You want a really heavyweight one in order to hold your camera up because it's at such a weird angle. If you get a real lightweight cheapy one, it's not going to hold the camera. It's going to keep dripping. Like, your videos will all go like this. I've had that happen even on this a few times because I didn't have it tightened enough. But you want a real heavy base. So, and this base weighs a ton. It's like this big metal, like iron piece. I don't know. It would be a weapon if I was strong enough to lift it. But that is what I'm doing to keep it so that it's kind of in front. So I'm going to dry this. Melanie said, I post pictures of my grandchildren, so I don't really want for my personal page to be public. I'll make an extra IG account. Now, there would be another thing. If you don't want your private stuff, I don't post anything online that I would need to hide from the public. So, I mean, I don't post pictures of the outside of my door or anything where people could like identify where I live. I don't have grandkids, so or anything like that. So I don't really have to worry about that. But I can definitely see where you would want to keep that private and have two separate accounts. Hi, hello, Shiny. Tamara said, thanks, Lisa. For some reason, I was having anxiety about losing people. The minis are more of a hobby, but I love making them. You know what? And that's the thing. If you lose people, were they that big of fans to begin with? They probably weren't going to buy something from you. I mean, there are people who I follow who make different things that I'm super interested in their content. If they post something and I really like that person and it's somebody that I may buy something from, then posting their crafts isn't going to make me unfollow them. But if it's someone who I was just kind of like, meh, I mean, I hit follow, but I'm not super, like, I'm not really going to go watch their videos or anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't actually affect them. Like, it's that number chasing thing where you're just so worried about gaining numbers, but it's not people who actually are interested in the content or interested in the things that you're working on. So those are definitely things to keep in mind too. Does it, if they're going to leave over that, were they big enough fans to matter in the long run anyway? I don't know. I probably sound like I'm contradicting myself because there's so many sides to consider on that. Okay, so this guy has kind of a grayish blue, so I'm going to mix some black and white in with this. Okay, that is way too gray. Now when I start mixing, here's a tip when you're trying to mix a color. I'm not just going to take the scoop and go into the same big pile. I'm mixing off to the side because I'm just going to keep mixing a whole lot of the wrong color. See, I'm going to pull this into it until I can figure out what color I want instead of just keep stirring more color into the one pile. I'm going to pull some of this cobalt blue in there too. Now that's looking good for my shadowed portions. I can glaze over it if it's not blue enough. I'm going to actually leave that for a second, and I'm going to make a slightly lighter batch of this. Ooh, I mix that into water if that's too much water. And this I don't want it to be so gray, so I can just do white and the ultramarine blue. Okay, so this is basically the color I have there, but I want to get it wet so that I can get some wet into wet blending as it fades down into the darker blue. So now I can start pulling some of this in there. Ooh, too dark. That is way too much black I had mixed in there. So I'm going to rinse, and I'll just let the blue I add mix in right on. There we go. We'll just mix it into it. I'll probably have to, and by probably I mean absolutely going to have to put another coat, I think, to get this really where I want it to be color-wise. I think I need to add a little bit of purple to it too, just to cool off the blue. I think it's a little too warm looking. These guys are kind of a purplish blue. I mean, they're definitely blue, but it's got this purple tint to it. So let's blend that out. I'll take a brush like this to get rid of some of those brush strokes. I'm okay if some are there, but we can tone some down. These guys, you don't see any scales, you don't see anything. They're just super, super soft the way that they transition. So I'm going to take a bit of water. I'm going to rinse that brush just with some water. I'm going to go over this area. It's going to lift a little bit, but I need that to be smoother. I was getting a dry brush look that I do not want there. That works. I'm going to let that dry. And while that dries, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of work on the face and add some yellow. Let's see. JPC13 Art said, my brother walked by and said, the face of the fish looks similar to a cow, and now I can't unsee it. You are not wrong. Sarah said, mix to the side. Thanks for the tip. Julius said, do you have any tips for beginning digital art? Aaron Blaze, go subscribe to him. He's here on YouTube. Oh my gosh, he has the best tip. Like, that's probably my biggest tip, is go watch somebody else. Aaron Blaze, though, that's what he really does. He does all mediums, but he does a lot of digital, and just, you'll learn so much from him. Much more than me just like randomly trying to come up with something to tell you right now. I know that's not what you're looking for, but I would say one of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they work on digital paintings is that they keep everything almost blurry. Like, the things that are in focus, they don't spend enough time on the small details where you want to really blow it up and tighten up your edges and your details. So it ends up like everything's fuzzy and out of focus. So there's my tip for you. But yeah, go look up Aaron Blaze. He's amazing. Crystal said, I have heard that some people will follow you just to get a follow back and then will unfollow you. Oh yeah, they do that a lot. I always look at someone's account before I follow back. Why would you follow back? Don't follow back. Unless their account is something you're interested in, why would you follow back? You're not helping yourself. You're not there's no reason. There was this theory that if someone follows you, you should follow them back. Like, they used to actually, my network that I'm on with, or my MCN with for YouTube, which I probably should cancel. They're not doing me any good, but I don't know that I need them. But anyway, I've been with them for so long, since I first started, so I just never bothered to cancel it. But anyway, with them, that was one of the things that they used to tell you is if somebody subscribed, or back when you were trying to build Google, your Google Play, words are hard, Google Plus, Google, yeah, whatever, their social media. They said follow anyone who follow them back. It'll help with whatever that. It doesn't work now. Don't bother. If somebody follows you and you're interested in their content, now people have followed me and I looked at their stuff, mostly reef keepers, and I'll look at their stuff and I'm like, wow, they post a lot of photos of really cool fish and corals and stuff. I'm interested in that. Then I'll follow them. If I go to their page and it's like, wow, they post a lot of like them eating food and weird stuff, I'm not gonna, like, why would I follow that? That's not something I'm interested in. So don't feel like you have to. I don't think it does you any good to follow somebody just to be, it's not like a polite, like if somebody says hi to you, you have to say hi back. Okay, yes, I agree with that. If someone follows you, you don't have to, there's no reason to follow them back unless their content is something you're interested in. It's not rude not to follow back. It's actually very, very rude for somebody to kind of pressure you or like follow me back. Or if, God, there was somebody recently left a comment on one of my, was it Instagram or was it YouTube? I think it was Instagram, but it was, I like to follow great art channels or something about how great my artwork was. And they like to follow, and they'll stay followed to me if I follow them back. And it's like, how about I just block you and avoid the drama? Like, I don't know why you think that's going to work for you. But no, follow for follow and having to follow people back, absolutely unnecessary. Okay. Let's see how that's, let's go ahead and just dry this so I can do a couple more layers to get my color just where I want it. But it's a good question, Crystal. It's just, you don't need to follow them back. You know, a lot of people do this whole numbers for the sake of numbers. Numbers don't do you any good if there's no engagement. Numbers don't do you any good if they're not commenting, if they're not liking, if they're not going to, you know, in the case of being an artist, if they're not going to buy anything from you. Those numbers aren't, there's no reason to have somebody who's not paying attention to what you're creating. And on some platforms like Facebook, it would actually hurt you to have people who are following you who are not interested in your content, because with Facebook, they, if you have a lot of, just letting that cool off. But if with Facebook, let's say they're only going to share your content when you post something with 3% of your followers. Facebook's gotten bad, but they share it with 3%. If that 3% are the people who followed you who aren't interested in you, they just clicked follow because you asked them to, do so in order to enter a contest or whatever, and they're not actually interested in it, they're not commenting on your stuff, then it's actually hurting you, because if they're the type of person who isn't interested, that means they're not going to comment. And the more people who comment on your Facebook post, the more Facebook shares it with more people. If they're sharing it with a bunch of people who followed you for the numbers but aren't interested, they're not commenting, your stuff's never going to hit the people that actually want to see. I would much rather have, 10,000 people who are really interested than 50,000 and half of them or whatever are not so interested. It hurts your numbers if it's a bunch of people who aren't following you because they actually care, and people who actually like your content aren't going to bug you to follow them back. Well, a few people will, but they don't understand how things work. Okay, let's see. Scroll back up. I missed a few questions here. Art of Raven D said, a few years ago, I remember a dream I had. I wrote dreams down at the time. I caught a fish that was a zebra head, except no ears, but it had a tail fin and all. Weird. Random. Tisha said, I love how you break down an image to paint it. I always watch one of your paintings beginnings before I start my own. You really help me not to overthink it. Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, definitely don't overthink things. That definitely makes things way more difficult. I actually kind of like his color. I would like a slight purplish tint, so I'm going to do a glaze. Did I get a bluish purple? I've got some purple. Actually, I'm going to do a highlight. And then I'm going to do with with transparent mixing white, and then I'm going to do a glaze of a purplish blue over him. So I could actually just use titanium white if it's not opaque enough, but there's my transparent mixing white. So glad that Liquitex decided to make that in the basics. Aslan said, I never thought to sand down the tooth of the canvas. I bet that will help me so much. So what sandpaper should I use? Like, how fine do I use? I think the one I used on the Aquashella one was 250 grit. I've used up to 1200 grit, and it was so fine and made things so smooth that it didn't have enough tooth for the paint to really want to stick to it. So I was worried about that kind of chipping or flaking over time. But 250, 300, I've used 400, I've even used 600 and been fine. I'll use what's on hand, basically. There's not like this is the one you have to always use. Crystal said, what drives me nuts is when they DM to buy their stuff. That's a total turnoff. So funny story while I paint this. So I have companies call me or contact me through DM on Instagram because they want me to promote their product. And I actually have one I need to share with you guys. It's this really cool for making circles, but it's like with magnets. It's really cool. So if it's something that I think is cool and that you guys might be interested in, I'll be like, yeah, sure, send it to me. I'll make a video. So this one company, they contacted me because, this is what I'm looking for, because are on my painting of the marine paintings, and they sell, I think, bracelets or something, and they're like, yeah, great content, blah blah blah. DM us for a free bracelet or for a bracelet or something like that. I forget what it was, but it sounded like it was somebody who was looking for an influencer to share their product. And I was like, oh, it's kind of cool looking. Like, I just wanted to get more information from them, and I was because they said that it was something about reef awareness, and I'm like, okay, but are you donating money for like efforts to save the reefs or clean the reefs, or what is your product? I was trying to get more information, and it ended up turning into a full sales pitch. And it was like, oh, you didn't even pay attention to the account you left that comment on. Like, I don't buy things that I'm going to promote for you for free. Like, that's not even happening. It was kind of funny though. It was like, wow, you wasted both our time. But it was more of a funny conversation because they were so just randomly messaging. It shows what they do to everybody, that they're just, messaging you to try to get you to buy stuff. That normally would irritate me, but in this case it was really funny because the conversation, I started out asking, are you looking for someone to promote your product? Are you looking for influencers, or are you just trying to sell this to me? And they kept going, oh, well, it's this, it's that, it's to help the ocean, it's this, and going on, here's our website. And yeah, I finally was like, yeah, you need to stop talking to me. But it was just a funny, cheesy sales pitch, I guess. Anyway, let me dry this. Kristen said, how do you keep inspired and motivated all the time? Because it's been months since I've been inspired. You pick something and you get started. If you're sitting around waiting for inspiration, you're going to be sitting around for a long freaking time. Go paint. Pick something up. Get started. Do not sit around waiting for inspiration or motivation to hit. There's this kind of misconception out there that artists, that we need our muse, that we're going to be inspired by whatever, the magic fairy dust has to hit us and that's what's going to inspire us and we're going to be ready to paint. No, go paint. Because when you go paint something, let's say you painted an apple. Okay, it's boring. It's an apple. But maybe then that gives you an idea. What if I painted an octopus holding an apple? Maybe if I painted an octopus holding an apple with a top hat that had a feather, or he was riding. I don't know. It may run into these really cool ideas that started with, I painted an apple. But it started with something, and it got you. And it's such a common question. It's a great question. But you have to paint. You have to go paint. That's how motivation finds you. It doesn't find you sitting on the couch watching TV. It finds you at the easel. So go paint. Even if what you paint is super ugly today, it may lead to the next amazing great painting. This isn't going to be some award-winning painting for me, but it may lead me. I'm really liking this concept. I may use this concept of the background on something bigger, on a bigger piece. It can lead to something else. And you still created something pretty in the meantime. Just remember, when you're sitting there watching TV, that is not where inspiration will ever find you. Am I using an acrylic medium? I am not. I'm using water to thin my paint. So I'm going to we'll just use some of the cobalt blue. A little bit of purple. I'm going to thin that. Now here, I'm technically underbinding the paint. Again, it'll be varnished. It's going to be fine. But I'm going to thin this a lot for this. Actually, you know what? I want to see what will happen if I mix transparent mixing white in with it. Oops, I'm going to want more blue then. The Powder Blue Tangs have such a unique color, and I want to make sure that I'm capturing that look. So I'm going to rinse my brush to get all of the paint off. So it's just water, and now I'm going to reload and see if I've done too much or not. No, I need more purple. It looks super purple on the palette, and then I get over here and it was like, oh no, that needs more. Yeah, this is a much better look. And then I'm going to switch to a stiff brush, get a little bit of water so it can fade up to this light color. Yeah, it's kind of funny talking about TV. How much time I remember when I was younger spending in front of the TV. Like even like when I was in my 20s, or I think even when I was in my 30s, there were some of those times. But where I would just sit in hours and hours and hours watching shows that to this day, I can't remember what I watched. I mean, none of it matters in the end. It was such a waste of time, the amount of time spent sitting in front of that TV. And it's like, man, if I would have spent that time painting or practicing violin or anything else, it's kind of a habit that I had to break. I actually don't even have, I have TVs. I have a TV back there, a little one, and that I will play Harry Potter on over and over and over again. And I have one in the living room, but it's kind of the same thing. When does Little Mermaid come out? That's coming back out on DVD. That's when I'll play that or Lilo and Stitch. I'll just let them loop over and over again, so it's like background noise. But not, don't just to sit down and watch TV. I almost never do that. There's a few shows like Game of Thrones. I'll sit down and watch that, but I don't have, I don't have cable. I have to watch it elsewhere, but I don't have, I've gotten so used to not watching it, which is weird. Cause if you would have told me that in my 20s that I wouldn't want TV at all, I would have never believed you. Let me try this. Yeah, Nick, Game of Thrones matters. I agree. There's a few things. I'll occasionally watch something on Netflix, like lately at night, right before I go to bed. Like we'll watch one episode of something Carbon. I don't know, something on Netflix. But I'll watch things like that occasionally. But it's because I wanted to spend time with my husband, and it's like an hour, not, it's not an everyday thing. It's not like it used to be. It's just so crazy to think of how much time I spent in front of that TV. Okay. Enough with the TV lectures. Let's move on with the painting. So I need to get this to fade from light white down to a darker purple there. And I want to get it to be, actually we'll do cobalt blue. I want it to have, that's going to need to be no, that should work. A nice wet into wet fade. Oops, I'm definitely going to need a bit more water with that. There we go. I may have a bit too much water. We'll see. Yeah, nearly certain that's a bit too much water, but we'll fix it. I'm going to grab some white. Yeah, Sarah, great. And that's such a good quote from Picasso. Inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. Exactly. And that is not going to happen in front of the TV. I keep saying in front of the TV because that was probably my big thing that I wasted too much time on. That may not be your thing. I don't know what your thing is, but you have to figure, what are you spending time of instead of painting when painting is what you really want to be accomplishing? That's a nice fade. I'm happy with that. I feel like I'm a mom lecturing people. TV rots your brain. Maybe it doesn't rot your brain, but it does keep you from accomplishing things you want to accomplish. Let's see. Altered Carbon. Is that the one where they wore the sleeves, the human sleeves, like is that what that one was? For some reason, I can never remember the name of that show. But that one, whatever it is, I'm addicted. We have 2 more episodes to watch. If I can get enough work done tonight, I can allow myself to watch the last 2. We'll see. Ursi said, when I was younger, I would look at a TV program and stop by paused VHS while doing art, typing, computer programming, and such as. Wow, VHSs. I haven't seen those in a while. Yeah, I will sometimes put on like Netflix while I paint, but I'm still painting. But I don't like it to be on if I'm designing something for some reason. Like then I can do music, but I can't come up with the design if I'm like focused on watching a show. Once the design is done, I find that I can put it on, like I'll put it over on my workbench next to me. I'm safe to, or usually I listen to audiobooks, but I'm okay. Like I'll still accomplish what I need to accomplish once the design is done. But it kind of, I don't know, it affects the design process. So I don't like to watch it or put anything on till that painting is done. Because once the design process is done, everything's just more technical. So I don't have to like really think that much about things. Like this is just technical. This is not some crazy creative thing because I've already done the creative portion of coming up with a design. Now it's just a matter of technical, the technical stuff. I'm just going to keep saying the same words over and over again when I can't think of what I was trying to finish saying. Tamara said, for me, it's how-to videos on YouTube. Yeah, I think YouTube's probably like the new thing to be hooked on more so than TV. I don't know. Do people still watch a lot of like TV anymore? Am I into heavier music genres? Like what? What would you consider? I mean, probably not. I used to really like emo, although I can't think of the last time I listened to that. I don't know. What do you consider heavy? I guess heavy rock, no. Never was a huge fan of that. I like emo, techno. I'm trying to think what else I like that's stuff like Project 86. I really like them. I actually end up listening to a lot of like instrumental stuff, like Bal Maria and things like that. It just puts me in such a happy mood. Ing said, hi, Lisa. She didn't cough. I coughed. Hi, Lisa. I love drawing flowers a lot. Some people makes me doubt myself. They say, why draw paint only flowers and not other things like animals, people? Sometimes I think that's okay. You know what? No matter what subject you are interested in painting, you're going to have somebody that comes along and says, oh, you should do this instead. You could paint people and they'll be like, people just take photographs. Why don't you paint a landscape? If you paint landscapes, people are going to, oh, it's kind of boring. Everyone paints landscapes. Why don't you do something surreal? Why don't you do something abstract? No matter what medium, you're going to have somebody that tells you that. So what you want to do is paint what you love and what you're interested in, because that's what's going to make a difference in your work. Don't paint something because somebody else told you it would be popular or anything like that. You paint what you're interested in. That will make all the difference. So if flowers is your thing, then you keep up with those flowers and you just become really, really good at those flowers. Don't let somebody else tell you what to paint. Unless they're paying you for a commission, then they get a bit of say then. Okay, let's get some blue on his face. Actually, we can use some of this blue we used earlier. And I'm just glazing that color. Although this is probably still a bit too watered down. Maybe it'll be okay. We'll find out. Yeah, it may work. I've got to fan that though. It's going to start to kind of puddle. I'll probably have to put another layer. Actually, I need to dry that before it runs because that paint was too thin. Good enough. I don't need to dry it all the way because I'm not working on that right now, but it does need to be a bit more dry. So I'm just going to start from working on the tail and work my way over on the fish now. Because, I mean, everything's basically blocked in. So it's just a matter of pick an area that you're wanting to work on details on. Doesn't matter what. Now, when you're working with acrylic paints, I basically look at it as work with whatever is farthest behind in the back and work your way forward. So that's kind of how I decide which layer to do next and what to work on next. Ursi said, did I read this one? No, I didn't. Ursi said, I'm the same technically of design first and figure out all the rest later. Every person that is that way is successful, accomplished at. Sergi said, I'm saying that Sergi, I'm sorry, says, I guess symphonical music would also count as it's not, sadly, everyone's cup of tea. Yeah? Do I use gesso before I paint? No, because all the canvases I use are already gessoed. The only time I add gesso is if I need to smooth a canvas out, where it's already gessoed, I'll put 1 or 2 more layers of gesso and sand it if it's a canvas that has too much tooth. Sass says, any good new audiobook series? Just finished Strange the Dreamer and Views of Nightmares by Laini Taylor, and I loved them. Wait, isn't she the one that wrote Daughter of Smoke and Bones or Smoke? And if that is her, I need more information on these books, because that author was, well, at least those books were incredible. Trying to think of what, I know the name, I just don't know if I'm getting the right author with the right book. Any new good audiobook series? I'm reading, it's not new, but I started again with the Dragonian series. I absolutely love those, and I've listened to them like a million times. I like books that are so good that you want to listen to them over and over again, and it's just so hard to find. But yeah, I'm listening to that again right now. I haven't read anything lately that I was super like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and I'm super excited about since the Dragonian series. Like, I'll read books that are decent, but nothing's as good as those. At least for me. So, no, unfortunately. Thanks, Maria. He just said, what type of brush do you use to blend it? It almost looks like a makeup brush. It is. Good eye. Well, this one's not. This is, I think, a mop. Royal Soft Grip. It's some sort of a mop. But yeah, most of the brushes that I'm using are makeup, like blush brushes. My favorites are ones, you want to get something like this. It's a really lightweight wood handle. Something that's lightweight, and the longer the handle, the better. You don't want something like this one. This plastic handle weighs a ton, and I can't keep a loose enough hand to really blend well with it. The bristles are great, but the handle sucks. So, but yeah, it's a blush brush. Okay. Sass said, yes, she is, and they are even better. Oh my gosh. Hold on. I just have to put these paintbrushes down and write this down, because this is a big... Actually, I just remember Laini Taylor and go look up her other books. I really need... I'm excited if that's... Yes, I have to look those up. She's such... Those other books were so good. So if you think they're better, oh my gosh, I'm excited. I'm needing to find something right now. That's why I'm just listening to Dragonian series again. As many times as I've listened to it, it's like, it's just frustrating, because I'll listen to books and it's like, it's okay. Just nothing's as good as that. So yay, if she's got more. So make sure this line's nice and clean, and then it frays as it comes down. Mine are a bit too frayed. I'm actually going to soften some of that with a flat brush. I don't want it to have that much detail. And I'm going to come back through and refine it a bit better with the darker blue. Because I do not like the way I had my lines. I was being lazy. I got too excited about a book. Let's see. JPC, oh good. Joe loves those books too. Yeah, The Daughter of Smoke and Bone. God, those books are good. They're like, I don't know, they're the most beautifully written books. It's really weird. Most of the books, even my favorite books, I don't look at or think or describe them as just being beautifully written. Like the words and the way that she wrote everything, it was like music. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it was just beautiful, and the bouncing back and forth between the past, the present, it was just so well done. Beautiful, like... And then it's like fantasy style, which I prefer. I don't like realistic stuff. So, yeah, those books are amazing if you've not read them. JPC13 Art said, Strange the Dreamer is the same author as Daughter of Smoke and Bone. Okay, good. I'm definitely looking that up. Is that series complete yet, or is she just now working on them? Or, like, how many are out? Lou said, is the book you're thinking of Children of Blood and Bone? No, I don't think that's it. But maybe I should look into that, if it's fantasy. Nick says, I'm halfway through Lord of the Rings trilogy, like for the 1000th time, narrated by Robert Inglis. I've not listened to those ones. I don't know, those movies are just where, like, I liked them, but oh my gosh, they just kept going and going, and it's like, is this, the last one especially, it's like, is this movie ever going to end? Like, it was good 3 hours ago, but it's still going. I'm going to anger Lord of the Rings fans probably with that. But I haven't tried the books, so I don't know why I never even thought to read the books. Maybe I need to look into that. I'm going to add a little bit of a ridge to that fin and pull this in with the black. Just in there because I painted over it. Okay, and now I need to get kind of a bluish gray color coming around the fin here. I need to go darker than that, so let's add a bit more black. I should pull some of this purpley color in there. I'm just making a muddy mess of color. Saf said it ended and could end or it could continue, and it even tied into Daughter and Smoke and Bone. So maybe ooh, yes, I am going to go get that book probably tonight because I think I have some credits still. Do I? If not, I do soon. You can spell the name Sergio. Oh, Sergio, because I can't spell names. I wish I could remember that, though. Should we expect more graphite tutorials in the future? Yes. When? I don't know. I mean, I know for sure I'll do it, but there's so many mediums that I work in and that I love working in that unfortunately, it can end up being too long in between different mediums. Right now, you're going to see, especially for the live streams, will probably for the next month or so, be a lot of these type of paintings, the quick fish ones, because I want to get a few of these done for Aquashella. So you're going to see more acrylic for live streams coming up. And the reason that I go with acrylic is it's a fast medium. I can get a lot of work done very quickly, and I want to get quite a few of these paintings done. So whereas like graphite would take me too long, and graphite's harder to like, it would need to be framed really to sell at an event like that, and I don't want to get into that. Whereas acrylics, I can just varnish it and sell the canvas as is. So yeah, it won't be in the next month. I know that for sure. Just because I've got a bunch of these to get done. The brush that I'm using right now, this is a number 2 synthetic hog hair liner brush. It's the Masters, what is it, Masterson or Masters? Masters Touch. The Hobby Lobby's generic. I love these brushes. As far as liner brush and details. Melanie said, I love that you do so many different mediums. Yeah, me too. I get bored if I do the same one too many times in a row. So it's kind of a nice way to change things up a bit. Okay, now see, here is just flat yellow. This needs to dry. I could take the hairdryer to it, but I'm actually just going to switch and do the yellow part real quick. Need to get some white. That's going to be too much. So I'm almost dry brushing, kind of, here, but the canvas is so smooth that it doesn't look like it's dry brushed. If you've been around for very long, you know I hate the look of dry brushing. Like, really don't like how that looks. But these canvases being as smooth as they are, you can get away with doing it a bit. Okay, that yellow pulled out farther than it should have. I'm just going to get my brush wet, wipe that off, which works because what was underneath it was dry, so it didn't mess anything up. Melanie said I hadn't painted in a really long time due to life circumstances, but you inspired me to start again. I love your tutorials. That's great to hear. I'm so glad. Now, I went through a phase when, before I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I didn't know I was sick so much. And I went through a pretty long phase where I just didn't get much painting done. It really felt good. Like when you get back to it, when you've not worked on stuff in a long time. That's such a nice feeling to get back to the easel. Ercy said the book's Lord of the Ring is so much better to read. My mother did illustrations for the book a long time ago. As amazingly... Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I may have to look into those ones too, because that is the type of story, like that fantasy type thing, that world that I definitely prefer in my books. I just didn't even consider looking at them because I was so bored through the last movie. I was also really tired. We went at the midnight showing when it first came out, and that was back before I went full-blown nocturnal. Now it wouldn't be so hard, but at the time it was like, oh my gosh, I just want to go home and go to bed. Carla Renee said, when are you going to finally get some videos on approaching a gallery from preparing your portfolio to the initial meeting? I don't know. See, the problem for me with galleries, I don't drive. So going to something to do that isn't something so easy for me to do. Because I want to talk to some galleries about doing stuff like that with them, but, you know, to do videos. But it's hard when you don't drive to go do stuff like that. Have ever went through more tough phases when you couldn't afford certain art supplies? I did not come, I was very, well, below poverty level, so I guess you would say poor. I mean, my family would always feed me, but yeah, I had no money for a very long time. So absolutely. And there were times where I had to work 2 jobs so that I could afford, because I wanted to be an artist. So there was one time I was working at a grocery store and cleaning bathrooms and working as a housekeeper for some people. And what was the other thing I was doing? Working at Petco. All at the same time. I mean, you can, actually the house cleaning may not have been during that time. I think the house cleaning was after a while. What was I doing when I was doing house cleaning? I don't know. At one point I was cleaning houses. I'm old. It was a long time ago. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, absolutely there have been times, and that's so frustrating when you can't get art supplies. And that's one of the reasons I always tell artists, because a lot of people will do the whole, well, I'm going to give up my day job and go full time as an artist. And it's like, well, good luck buying art supplies, because that's going to be frustrating, or paying your bills. Like, don't do that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I had to work extra jobs or do extra things so that I could buy more supplies. And I had to build up my art supplies slowly over time. I started with, now I did have colored pencils because my high school gave me what I was using, like that year we got to keep them. So I had Prismacolors, and then graphite, because graphite's fairly inexpensive. And although my graphite drawings at the time were just sketches, I really wasn't doing much in the way of like now where I try to make it look like a black and white photograph, or more like that look. And acrylics. Acrylics were my main focus. And I started with just a handful of colors. And then as I had more money, or, you know, I saved up more money, bought more colors, saved more money, bought more paint. It was a slow process to get to the point. I mean, I was just thinking about that. It's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking about this earlier tonight, how grateful I am now to be to the point where I have all the art supplies that well, pretty much all of them I want. Faber-Castell is sending me some new ones that I don't have yet. I'm doing an exchange for some videos for them. So I get some more watercolor pencils. But yeah, absolutely. And you go slow. I mean, there's always going to be more that you want. I mean, even this easel. I wanted this easel bad. I saved for the last year to get this. I mean, it wasn't, you can't always run out and get what you want at the time. Don't let that discourage you. Because even if all you have the money for right now is graphite, graphite's an awesome medium, and you can learn a lot that you can then apply to other mediums in the future if you wanted to, because you've mastered values then if you're working in black and white like that. But no, yeah, maybe sometimes you have to take on an extra job and give up sleep for a while, especially when you're younger. That's easier. I don't know that I could do that now. But yeah, back then, if you want something bad and if you're going to find a way to do it, and yeah, it can be frustrating when you can't get the stuff. Canvases were so expensive. Canvases now, well, maybe because I have Azel Art Supply next to me before, well, now I work with Fredrix, but before that I would buy my Fredrix canvases from Azel Art Supply because they're all 50% off. But I remember when I wanted to get canvases initially, gosh, they were expensive. I'd go to Aaron Brothers or Michael's and just stock up whenever they had their big sales before their sales turned into not actual sales, but bringing it down to reasonable cost, because they mark everything up so high so they can have sales. But gee, I wonder why Aaron Brothers went out of business. Anyway, I mean, that was frustrating that it was expensive. One of the big ones too, I really wanted an airbrush. I knew that was something I needed at one point to do the type of acrylic painting that I wanted, and I didn't have the money. And you have to wait and save and work more hours, or, you know, whatever you need to do to make that happen. But absolutely, I definitely did not start out with all these supplies. Let's see. Can I do a video in the future of drawing portraits? I have videos like that already. I'm sure I'll do more, but yeah, I have some graphite portrait ones. I haven't done any in a while, though. Elaine said, yeah, same with me. You really inspired me to get back into art, and I've learned so much from you. Yay! Especially since binge watching your videos. That's so great to hear. Oh, I just scrolled too far. I'm sorry if I missed questions. Crystal said, I'm a diehard Lord of the Rings fan. I own all the extended DVDs and have watched them all in one day, which is about 16 hours long. I hope you were painting at the same time. Now that some shows or movies like that can definitely, I think, be inspiring if it's at the same time. The landscapes of some of those is just like, oh my gosh, that makes me want to paint. So I guess TV or movies can technically kind of inspire you. Let's see. Clarence said, so if I'm understanding correctly, if I use a glass palette, the acrylic paints stay wet longer. If so, I imagine that'll be my next purchase. Well, not by itself. It's inside of a Tupperware thing. And so I can store this overnight. I have a paper towel in here that I just get, make it damp, and then I seal it with a lid. The paint in here, this area, will start to dry. These paints, when they're sealed, stay pretty wet for a very, very long time. But it's not like it stays wet longer while I'm working. It's the same as a normal palette. But once the lid is on, I can save this paint and use it over the next week, you know, several weeks if I need to. Anything I've thinned or mixed in the center, that needs to be scraped off. But these outer edges, they last for a really long time. Let's see, you've never mentioned these jobs before, and who says you're old? Oh my God, you're an artistic force of nature. You'll get those sweet Albrechter pencils from Faber-Castell. Yes, and I can't say that Albrechter, I can't say that. I'm gonna have to learn how to say it before I make a video using them, huh? But yes, that's one of the things that I'm trading for them to make those videos, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, I've worked lots of jobs. I can't even begin to tell you how many toilets I've scrubbed in my life. There was one time at Stater Brothers, if you're in Southern California, you know that one. I had to clean the bathroom. Somebody had made a mess. I don't know how it ended up on the walls and the smell and the, oh God. No, I've worked some horrible jobs in order to get to this point. I didn't start, you know, I did not have money. But you do what you've got to do to get where you want to go. You can't, so many people do, and I've had people say stuff like, it must be nice or things like that to me, and it's like, you have no idea how long it took me to get to this point. I didn't start with all of these supplies and so much time to paint. That took a while to build, and I worked a lot of jobs that I didn't like during those times. I worked at animal hospitals. That was the last thing I did before I went full-time into art. There were animal hospitals, pet stores, house cleaning, bathroom cleaning. What else did I do? Trying to think. The grocery store. That one was one of the worst. I worked at Sam's Club for a while, actually. I kind of liked that one. That was before I got the job at the animal hospital, which paid more. Where else have I... Maybe that's it. I don't know. And many of them were overlapping, so I was working two at once just to... And then, of course, painting at home, you know, when I had time off, going home and painting. So a lot of people think, well, I'll get better if I put all my time into painting. Yeah, but if you can't afford art supplies, that's not going to work out for you. You've got to work normal jobs too. You'll get there. Let's see. Charlie said, do I varnish my paintings? I do, and I have videos. I think it's on the front page of my YouTube channel. But if you look up Lachri Varnish Acrylics or Lachri Varnish Oils, I've got videos showing you exactly how I do that. But yes, I definitely varnish. Okay, well, that just scrolled out of view, so sorry if I missed anything. Donna said, watch their local bidding sites on Facebook. Oh, what is this? I must have missed a lot. On Facebook for supplies too. I just got an Iwata compressor with 2 Iwata brushes for $35 Canadian. Whoa, wow, I was lucky. How do I like your profile pic? I made it myself. I can't see it on here. It's like smaller than my pinky nail. I can't, maybe half my pinky nail. I can't see it. Gail said, we were so poor. I did portraits of my parents 30 years ago using pastels, watercolor, makeup, and whiteout. I love my real supplies so much. Yeah, and you know the thing that's so cool? People get in this whole, like, poor me, I'm having to live through rough times. You know what? Those rough times make you appreciate the good times where you can't afford the supplies or you can't afford to pay. I love being able to pay my electric bill. Who would have known that'd be such an awesome feeling? But, I mean, you go through those bad times and it's going to make you appreciate when things go better so much more than somebody who just, you know, wasn't struggling so much financially from the beginning. So I don't regret growing up broke or being broke, you know, in the beginning of, well, most of my life. I don't regret those times. I learned a lot from them and it makes me appreciate, like right now, I live in an apartment. I lived with family for many years, which was not with, it was with my in-laws. Now, my in-laws are great people, but living with your in-laws as an adult is rough. no matter what, it is rough. And I would never have appreciated, as much as I love my apartment, I don't think I would have appreciated as much as I do had I not lived with my in-laws for many years. And again, I don't mean to make that sound bad against my in-laws. They were great for, we financially just couldn't, when we moved to Texas, we couldn't get our left forward. My husband couldn't get back into the same industry he worked in, so he kind of had to start over again. And I had to build up my student following again. Everything just kind of started from scratch. So, but it wasn't, I mean, as much as people will complain, oh my gosh, I had to live with family. Yeah, but now I appreciate what I have now that much more. So don't ever, like, I don't know, don't let those times motivate you to, I guess, work harder towards your end goals. And your end goals are going to be worth it or feel so much better when you get there than they otherwise would have if things were easy all along. Okay, let's see. Julia said, have you tried using an Exacto knife to make details in colored pencil? Yeah, and it doesn't work for me very well because I use odorless mineral spirits, which means my pigment stains the paper. So the Exacto knife just lifts and shows more stained paper. So it doesn't really, for the methods I use, it's not ideal. I've seen people do that and it works beautifully. So it's not a bad method. It just doesn't work for me because I prefer working with odorless mineral spirits for blending. Carla said, but in today's school, they're teaching students how not to do homework. They're teaching them how not to compete. How can these kids know what it's like to work for something? And I agree with you. And it's really sad how much kids aren't taught. I mean, I remember as a kid being taught in high school that minimum wage you can't live off of. And they kind of walked us through how much you needed to make. And they're like, you need to find a way to make at least this much money. You cannot live off minimum wage. And they don't teach kids that anymore. They teach kids that you should be able to make a great living working at McDonald's. McDonald's is the job you work at while you're going to school or while you're, working towards something else. It's not the job you're supposed to raise your family on. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with working at McDonald's. I'm saying they're not teaching the kids that you really, I mean, if you get into management, you're fine. So, I mean, you can. I'm not saying, I'm saying, being just the cashier or being the jobs that are, working your way up. I've noticed they're not teaching kids that anymore. And when somebody comes to a school and teaches the kids, like, these are the things you need to do to not stay financially struggling, the kids don't want to hear it. And it's really weird because it wasn't like that when I was in school. They taught us, you need to make a minimum of this amount of money. So what are you going to do to make sure you can do that to support yourself? And I mean, it was a good wake up call because as a teenager, I'm thinking, just you get a job and you move out from your parents. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You have to, get a job or train yourself. You need to find a way to be trained in a field that you can make the money you need. But they're not teaching that in most of the schools now, and it's really weird. It seems like a basic thing that kids need to learn. I don't know, maybe they assume parents will teach them. Let's see. Sarah said, I used to draw on printer paper. Me too. Sometimes for my mom's work. Me too. On the back of it all said Super Pets or Pomona Valley Veterinary Hospital. Like the old paper, the damaged paper. They'd get boxes that were damaged or whatever. And I had a lot of that. Or if there were print like receipts and stuff that people didn't want, I use that. You use whatever you've got. Donna said, did I hear you correctly that there's now transparent mixing white in Liquitex Basics? You did. It's amazing. And I love it. So I bought the big tube. I'm glad because it is amazing. It is everything I dreamed it would be. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it, if you can't tell. What do I need? I have a bunch of brushes and I need something in between the ones I have out right now. Let's see. Okay, let's start getting some of the highlights around his face. So here's an example, because he's bigger. Now, if this was a small fish, like he's this big on a big painting with a lot of fish, I'm not going to put this kind of detail. But if he's going to be the focus of this painting, I want to spend extra time and pay attention to where the lights and the darks are. Get those shadows in there and the highlights. Put that little bit of extra time into it. And again, if you're doing something where it's a little fish and you're not seeing a lot of that detail, then you don't have to put as much. You get your basic shading in. But on something like this, I can put a little bit more detail. Not ick. Don't put that detail in. No dots. Yeah, see, Jay Sheets says you can live on minimum wage if you live alone. Don't buy what you don't need. Be responsible. You know, depends on where you live. You can't do that in California. There's no way, not by yourself. It depends. It completely depends on where you live. Now, there are areas in the U.S. where you can, but the cost of living in the areas I lived in, that was not possible if I wanted to live anywhere near my family. So that just depends. For me, it wasn't about living up to somebody else's standards. It was living up to, I want to be able to pay my bills. I don't want to stress anymore about not being able to pay my bills, and minimum wage wasn't going to do that for me. So I had to get other jobs. That's why I had so many jobs. I'm constantly trying to move up into making more so that I can pay my bills. And it wasn't about not buying what, I mean, I was never one to go out and buy a bunch of clothes. Now I have more clothes, but back then I didn't. I couldn't afford it. Most of mine were hand-me-downs. My friends, luckily, would give me a lot of their clothes. Otherwise, I'd have to, I'd say I'd go to the thrift store, but I used to shop at the thrift store. That was where most of my clothes came from for a long time. But, it really depends on where you live. Most areas, at least the areas I've lived in, minimum wage wasn't going to cover any rent unless you were getting some sort of government assistance, which I really didn't want to do, knowing I could do it on my own. I just had to figure out a way to do it. So, it definitely depends on where you live. And you're right. I mean, a lot of people do live beyond their means, and you can live on a lot less than what we're told. I mean, you get to a point where, what you make for minimum wage in California isn't going to go as far as what it will in certain areas like Oklahoma. So it just depends on the area. But yeah, I'm with you on the living within your means and not, just going out and overspending, which is a problem for sure, especially credit. People, that's, I think, where a lot of people have more problems. If you don't have debt, then minimum wage will get you farther, that's for sure. Let's see what was next. Oh yeah, his eye. I mean, my husband was making, before we left California, I think he was making, I say it was like $50,000 or $60,000 a year. We couldn't afford a 2-bedroom apartment. That's why we had to leave. We moved to Texas. We couldn't afford it anymore. Rent kept going up, but pay wage wasn't, and he's not making that here. But we figured, if he could make that much here, we'd be doing way better off. Unfortunately, he couldn't get back into that industry out here. Had a hard time finding a job, so he had to start. Like I said, he started over. But it just depends on the area. California was rough. Get some of these highlights. We're getting towards the end of this guy. Really isn't going to be much more on him. A little bit of a highlight there. Yeah, if you find yourself struggling for art supplies, if you don't have the money for it, start with graphite. It is one of the most inexpensive ways to go. It's beautiful. It's all going to be you don't have to worry about light fast issues with the graphite. And you're going to get such a great understanding of values for, the lights and darks and such. It's just such a great medium to get started with if you don't have any, if you're really struggling financially. And then you can work towards, save money towards getting whatever other mediums you're interested in. But don't ever do the whole, I want to get into art, but I can't afford it. Well, graphite. Get yourself, heck, a number 2 pencil and computer paper if that's what it takes to start. I mean, I wouldn't sell the work on that, but just get started. Have you seen some of the work done too? People with ballpoint pens and stuff. It gets kind of crazy that the work that people can accomplish. So whenever you hit that time where you're frustrated and you're like, if I could only buy this supply, then I'd take it more seriously, get more serious into art. Just graphite is enough to get you started and be serious if that's what you want. Like, just don't let any of that hold you back. A little bit more shading here. Fish lips. This little eye. Okay, let's give him his fins. That's going to make a huge difference, and I might do a couple of extra touch-ups, but we're nearly done. So, for the fins, I'm going to go with my liner brush again. That is this synthetic hog-hair liner. I'm going to start, I'll put some white lines. Now, the fins, when it comes to fish, I don't paint super accurate. I have a very stylized look just because that's how I've been painting them forever, and I like it. Let's see. Let's see, I wouldn't mind getting into art properly while using graphite. Color fitted my style way more. That's how I got to understand values. And then I found you. Yeah, and you don't have to, it's not like you have to stick to something. Just pick something to get started. Let's see how far this fin should come out to about here. I'm just going to put a dot and then maybe here so that I get my lines about where I want them. My stomach is growling. What did you eat? Okay, now I'm going to put a few lines in between now that I've got my general shape. And I will put dots. So these are not ick dots. They're just little shiny marks on the end of the fin. And this is one of the things that is a bit more stylized with how I draw fins. I put these little dots like the light is catching. I'm going to brighten up a few of these areas. Oh, got a bunch of questions here. Charlotte said, if someone asks what you want for your birthday, say art gift card. Yes, that is a good way to go, because more often than not, too, if you just say you want art supplies, they'll go to the art supply with good intention, but you end up with a bunch of stuff that is not what you would have wanted to paint or use. So gift supply, or yes, that is a good tip. Gift cards to art supply stores. Elaine said, I started with graphite on your recommendation because of money and values. LOL, and now I have 16 colored pencils because you said you can work on blending. That's awesome. Yeah, colored pencils are expensive, but yeah, you can just a few get you started. That's good. The Cove said, do you have a booth assignment for Aquashella yet? I do not. I have no idea where I'm going to be, which is a little scary because I was kind of put in last minute. I don't have any paperwork or anything, or not last minute, but it's, you know, we're trading for the artwork being done. So I'm going to have to contact George and see if I can get more information on that. I got an email from the guy who runs the booths to get, you know, our names so that we can get our badges or whatever, or tickets, or I don't know what they're doing it for that. But I mean, I've talked to him as far as that, but I don't know as far as where my booth will be or any of that. I don't even know what the setup is. I need to find out because I don't know what I need for the, oh, thanks, Donna. You're too sweet. But yeah, I don't know what I need to bring for, like, do I need to have a backdrop? Is there going to, because some, like, convention centers will have curtains that kind of separate stuff already. So then I just need to put the easels up, or, yeah, I have to find out some stuff for sure. I definitely am not ready. A little bit of a greenish tint just for the shadow here. Need more water. Oops. Oh, the co said, keep me posted so I can find you and give you a break. Thanks, I will. I'll let you guys know as soon as I have any information as far as that goes. I have no idea what's going on with any of that yet. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to going and looking at all the vendors and the, like, my thing that I'm collecting at this point for the fish tank. Well, I have to stop, so I can't buy anything right now, but my next things to buy are more testers. Like, I recently got the Hannah Salinity tester, which is amazing, by the way. If you keep reef tanks, you need one. The Hannah Salinity tester is great. My tank crashed, so story time. My tank basically crashed. Not a full crash, but I lost some pretty, yeah, it sucked. The two of my corals started, my Xenia and I think the Recordia mushroom, apparently got in a nuke the tank battle and killed each other pretty much. Well, along with my shrimp. It was not good. At all. So that was last week. It was a big old drama. But I think what might have set it off, my refractometer, or refractometer, or whatever, however you say it, was reading my salinity as being a lot higher than it was. And those are the things that are supposed to be super accurate. And it was off by quite a bit. And so I think my salinity got too low, and I didn't know that. That's the only thing I can think of that set it off. But anyway, yeah. So that's why I upgraded to the Hannah Salinity Reader, and that thing is amazing. I'm really, really happy with that. And it's cool because you just dip it into the tank and it gives you your temperature and the salinity. Like, just dip it in. Super easy. Like, way better than the refractometer, whatever. Again, don't know how to say that one. You're shocked. I never know how to say anything. But, yeah, so I'm looking forward to going to that event because I really want to see what some of the vendors have. Like, my tank is small. I can't put more or I won't be doing more livestock. I'm pretty much just going to go green star polyps for my coral in that tank. But I'm really looking forward to seeing all the other stuff. So that's going to be fun to walk around and look at, like, the parameter testing things and stuff. Donna said, any hints or tips for painting bristly dog fur on the muzzle? I'm still working on the dog painting. Dots. I mean, a lot of times if the fur is bristly and it's aimed at the viewer, you're going to do those as dots. So you're going to have to adjust which direction the fur is moving in. So that's the big thing to watch there. Just how long or short each strand of hair is and which direction it's moving in. That's a really big deal. But yeah, I would say that's probably my biggest. Watch the direction of the fur. Watch how thin or thick too each line needs to be. Those are the things that you really want to watch. It's easy to want to take a brush and just like dab it and like done. Like, slow down and really look at it. Where is it smooth? Where is it not smooth? Those things matter. Gail said, I'm the baby of 6. I grew up in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, like the Brady Bunch, but smaller. But we were all musicians and artists, and we grew our own food, and we're very happy. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't, like, I don't know. I can't complain about, like, not having a lot of money growing up or that my hand-me-downs or any of that. Like, I don't know. I feel like I learned a lot from that, which was a good thing. Deciding I was going to be an artist, I had to learn how to live on less, you know? So I don't know. I don't think it's something to regret. That's for sure. There was definitely a lot I learned, and I wasn't unhappy by any means. Yeah, my friends had more toys. They let me play with theirs. I still got to play with their Barbies and their stuff. So it wasn't that, you know, nothing that I regret, that's for sure. Like, we always had food. It may not have been the food we wanted to eat. There may have been hot dogs more often than not, but, or, you know, that sort of thing. But it wasn't, I think we definitely do get so caught up on money is what will make you happy. It will just make it so you can pay your bills, which makes things less stressful. But I don't regret any of that time. And the convention is the Aquashella. It's an aquarium festival. I should have the link in the video description. And yeah, the corals, unfortunately, can do that. I just have the one. Well, I have 2 aquariums, technically. One's for land hermit crabs, my bigger tank. And then I've got the 13.5 gallon for the marine fish. And I've just got 2 clownfish right now. I've got to get new shrimp. Now that we know what caused the problem, I'm getting some cyanobacteria starting, and I knew I was going to. It doesn't surprise me because the shrimp aren't there to pick up any extra food that I put in. So that's no surprise. Okay, it's just now starting, so I'll get that taken care of right away. But I don't have enough. I have my hermit crab, or the saltwater hermit crabs in the tank. There's 5 of those, but I need to get a little bit more of a cleanup crew in there to help with any food that the shrimp or the clowns don't get, because they're teeny tiny little babies and baby clownfish, but they're a little slow. So, well, not slow, I guess. I'm learning. I just got them, so I'm learning how much they need versus before it hits the ground. But I definitely need to get a bit more of a cleanup crew in there. But that's all I have. And yeah, I didn't know when I got the tank, because I kept a reef tank before, but it was a 65 gallon back when I was in California. And I never had nothing like that happened. But I think what happened, because my tank volume, my water volume is so low on a 13.5 gallon tank, only holds probably 11 gallons of water when the live rock and sand is in there. So it just wasn't enough. When one started releasing toxins, it pissed off the other one, and I think they just went into a battle. I thought it was a bacteria bloom at first, because my water got super cloudy, and once I realized what was happening and I pulled all the coral, I kept the green star polyps, I kept in the tank, and they're doing great. They're all open now. And I still have my purple mushrooms. I think they'll do okay. My green hairy mushroom I got rid of, because I found out that they have been known to eat small fish, and especially clowns that try hosting them. Not everyone has that happen, but I was like, you know what? I'm not even chancing that. So I took him back to the store. He lived. The green hairy mushroom was good. But I lost the zinnia and the recordia mushroom. They were really angry at each other and nuked the tank in their little coral battle. But they released so many toxins in the tank, and it's a good thing that I had as much carbon running, because I just added more. So, and I'm still not positive. I think it may have been the salinity that started the war. Like, one got upset, released a little bit of the toxin. The other was like, oh yeah, here's some toxins. And I think they just, in a tank with no water volume, I think that's what caused it. So yeah, definitely going more simple this time on what I'm putting in there. But I had already ordered. I probably would have waited to get the clownfish if I knew I was going to have gone through that. But that week before, I had special ordered the kinds that I wanted. So yeah, but they're doing, clownfish are really hardy. The only thing you really usually have to worry about with the clowns are parasites. So they were at the fish store for a week, and they look okay. So hopefully they stay okay. But otherwise they're doing great. I'm just paranoid about parasites. That's the only worry I have, but they're eating great and everything else is good with them. But yeah, so now that's my main thing I have in that tank. The really cool looking coral is not so cool at this point. The green star polyps that I'm keeping will end up looking amazing, because I want them to be the feature of this tank. But I'm going to let them take over all the rock, but that'll take some time before they grow into that. But I'm patient. I'll wait as long as I can keep my cute little clownfish alive. And I've got to get, like I said, more shrimp and a snail. Oops, I missed something. Because I have 9 freshwater tanks. Oh, you have a lot. With everything from guppies to puffers. Oh, wow, the freshwater puffers. Oh my gosh, so cute. My husband saw when we were at the fish store picking up my clowns and talking to them more about I had to get my salinity reader came in, all my other stuff. I had a new heater that came in. So when we were picking those up, he was looking at the freshwater fish and saw the rope fish. Yeah, he was all in love with those. That's a freshwater one. Like, I hadn't seen those before. I've never paid that much attention to freshwater fish. I don't know a whole lot about them, because I kept the reef tank. But there's some really cool looking ones we were looking at there while we were there. Oh, thank you, Tamara. You're so sweet. Let's see. What did I just load the brush with? I got all this. Oh yeah, shadows here. Pay attention, Lisa. Got all excited by Tamara. So see how I'm just building up these little bits of shadow? We'll wrap this live stream up in just a minute. I may add some bubbles to this guy, but that would be about it. Let's see. Trying to think what else. He's about where I want him. I do think I want to add a little bit more shading in here. I'll try to do this quickly so we can wrap this up, because I want to finish this guy in the live stream. Like I said, the only other thing I'd add are bubbles, but I've got videos showing you guys how to do that, so you don't need to be here for that. So I'm just taking that blue, just a little bit. I still need it to be soft, but I just want to create a little bit of shading there in his body, so it's not too flat. And then we've got a little bit of a ridge here. Tomorrow says, you have me scratching my head at coral aggression. Astounding. Yeah, different kinds of corals. Like, I have all soft corals, and the soft ones are the ones that'll do the whole little chemical warfare in the tank. Again, it's not normally going to be a problem for most tanks, but my tank is so small. Smaller tanks with the salt water are way harder to keep than big ones. They are not lying about that. I can tell you firsthand. So like I said, if this had happened in my big tank when I had the 65, I don't think it would have been an issue. The carbon would have taken care of it. Everybody would have been fine. You know, I don't think it would have been such a problem, but they're in such close quarters. Even though it wasn't overstocked, it didn't matter. There was just the toxins. Once those happen, they can start that. And then you have other ones like when you get into the large polyp stony corals. So like frog spawn, which I love, frog spawn. I was actually tempted to replace my Xenia with that, but I think I'm just going to let it go all green star polyps and keep it simple for this tank. But eventually I'll set up a bigger one. But for now, when I have a house, someday when I can afford a house. But right now, it's going to stay, I think, with just those. But anyway, yeah, the large stony polyps, so like frog spawn or, I don't know, the hammers, the torches, some of those, they send out sweeper tentacles. So they're in one place, they're beautiful, and especially at night, you'll see them put out this tentacle, maybe 6 inches long, and it reaches around and stings any coral that is near it so that it can kind of maintain his space. So those ones will sting other ones. And then you have the small polyp stony corals, which are way more advanced. That's not something I see myself ever getting into. Those guys are, as long as they're not touching, they have to, because they don't have anything that reaches out, but if they touch another coral, that's going to sting them. And they have these little battles for space of who's in which space. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, the things that they do. Like when I had the 65 gallon, it wasn't something, that was before the internet. Well, there was the internet, but people weren't, it wasn't like it is today. And mine were so spread out. I'd never had, actually, I think I only have ever had soft corals. I know I didn't have any SPS, but that was never a problem. Nothing was touching each other. The tank was too big for what little I had in there. I never really had it super full. I mean, I had it full of live rock, but I didn't have it super full of all the corals. I had some, but not like nothing. I didn't have to worry about any of that. So yeah, this has been a bit of a learning experience that I wasn't super expecting. Definitely didn't like. And it's one of those things where you want to keep looking back and go, oh, if I could have just done this differently, I could have saved, because it was heartbreaking to watch the shrimp die. But like, that was really tough. But it just happens sometimes, and most people will never have that happen, even in a small tank. It was just kind of everything lined up just right for an angry coral fight. Oh, look, I can rhyme. I guess my lesson I learned in this one was just, you know what, I'm going to go even more simple. I am definitely not going to fill my tank full of a lot of different types of coral because it's so small. I think the green star polyps alone will look really pretty. Stacy said brackish fish are super colorful. They are, but they're not clownfish. I really want a clownfish. Gail said, have you ever used Liquitex iridescent medium for the shiny effect on the fish scales? I have some iridescent paint, not the medium. I've not seen or tried that, but I have used the iridescent paint, not for fish. I like to, if I want them to look iridescent, I want them to look that way because I painted them that way, not because I used color that way, I guess. Although I have some Liquitex gold, like metallic gold. I need to check what the light fast ratings are. I never look because I don't use it often. Well, not on paintings like this, but I'm curious what that would look like on like Beehive. Try to get like that foil, almost like the gold foil, without actually having to do the gold foil techniques. So yeah, I'm considering trying that one. But normally, if I want something to look metallic or I want it to look shiny, I like to accomplish that with the paint without. Well, I guess that would be with paint, but with the way it's painted, if that makes sense. Let's see. I'm going to do a couple more things, and then we'll airbrush the rays of light and be done. So we're just going to kind of brush the light area just a bit in here. I'm going to spread that out with a clean brush. There's a little bit of water on this brush. I think that's good enough for what I want on this guy. I'll give him a little bit more on his mouth. Actually, I do want to make a little bit more of a highlight here. And I'm going to glaze a color over that. I just need that to dry first. And then I can glaze that. So I've got a bit more of a highlight there. Yeah, I definitely like that better. Oh, a couple more highlights. Thanks, Donna. Yeah, last week sucked. That was why I didn't do the live stream, because I was dealing with trying to save what I could out of the tank. So, I mean, all of last week was just tank maintenance, basically, of lots of water changes, trying to get the toxins. Well, at that time when I was doing all the water changes, I wasn't certain what was happening yet. But yeah, that is why there was no live stream last week. It was tank drama. Thanks, Tamara. Yeah, I'm going to have to get more. I was going to wait longer to get more shrimp. The experts that I've been talking to it's called Glass Aquatics in Hurst, Texas. Amazing. If you are in this area, oh my gosh, they are the best customer service. They called me like every day checking, okay, how's the tank today? Because I went in the day after it happened and was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's happening. They tested my water for me too, to make sure that my test kit was accurate, because sometimes they can like go bad, but because we didn't understand why my ammonia, my nitrites, and my nitrates were all fine, and if it was a bacteria bloom, I should have had some ammonia, I should have had something. And so they were calling all week, like checking to see how things were. So I asked her, I'm like, how long should I wait before I put more cleaner shrimp in there? She said that just like a few days was fine. Wait like 4 days after the clowns were in there, because my tank has to adjust to the bioload from them. So I was going to wait like a month, but I think I'm not going to wait that long. Well, not if she doesn't think I need to, but especially because I'm getting that cyanobacteria, which is from too many nutrients. I need something that's going to make sure I pull everything off the bottom of the tank, that it's not sitting like the food that if the clowns didn't get it. I'm trying to get better at not letting there be any excess, but shrimp or like an Assyria snail, something else that is going to eat more than what the crabs are able to grab, would definitely help matters. So I'm going to get something next week. It may just be a snail. I'm not sure. If I get shrimp, I'll just get one shrimp for now and make sure, everything's okay. And I don't want to add too much to the bioload on such a small tank all at once anyway. So maybe a shrimp next week. We'll see. But I keep testing my water parameters. Everything's looked fine, other than, like I said, I've got that bacteria growing, which is just excess nutrients. Like, it doesn't hurt anything. It is a sign that obviously I've got too many, I'm feeding the tank too much. My lights aren't on that much, so that's not likely the issue. Most likely it's from losing the shrimp and not having them grab food when it hits, and then putting the clowns in. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Art by MB. Thanks, Circes. Yeah, I'm really happy with how he's coming out. Carl wants to know if I have any sharpener for my Derwent and Luminance CP. They are larger than I just use my regular comb normally. Like, these little metal ones are kind of my favorites. I use them lately for everything. I go through phases where I'm like, now this is the sharpener I'm using. Now this is the sharpener, but they fit. I don't have any problems fitting in these little metal ones. But it's the comb sharpeners that I've been using. Blue Tea Art said, how do you manage your time so well, and tips for time management? Well, considering the lion with the coral on his head was supposed to be edited like a month ago, and I still haven't done it, my time's not being managed that well, especially last week dealing with all my fish drama, or shrimp drama, because I didn't have any fish at the time. But a schedule. I actually put together, I used Google Calendar, and I went through and put schedule, like, okay, I need to get this done at this time, this done at this time, and then a list. I keep a little notebook by my desk that I just write things down. I just hit the mic, sorry about that. But I write things down, like, these are the things I need to accomplish today. And it'll feel super overwhelming until you start checking things off and going through your list. And it helps you to just focus and get the things you really need done. If I don't make a list, I find myself wandering around like, oh, I'm going to go pet my dogs for a while. And I mean, they could get pet in between me working. They don't need me to go pay. Or I'm going to stare at my, well, what was an empty tank. But now I have, there's 2 clownfish in there now. I'm going to go talk to my clownfish. Yes, I'm talking to the baby clownfish. They're babies. They like to be talked to, right? So those are the types of things, though. If I have a list, I'm not as likely to find myself like randomly stopping and not accomplishing things, or that helps. I also have a friend that I talk to on the phone sometimes while I'm supposed to be cleaning, who's pretty good at reminding me, you stopped cleaning, or you sat down again, didn't you? Are you still cleaning? I'm really bad about that. She'll keep me on track when I stop paying attention and screwing around with stuff. But yeah, the list makes the biggest difference. Having like a to-do list and having that calendar of these are the things that I need to accomplish today. Okay, so now I'm going to take my airbrush. We're just going to airbrush a little bit of white paint in front of the fish so he looks like the rays of light are going in front and behind him. And I can actually use this now to soften up his fins and brighten up a few areas. Okay, well, I definitely need to paint some bubbles. Let's do that really quick. That's super fast. And then I can call it finished. I may as well finish it. It'll take like 5 minutes. I'm going a little longer because I did want this to be a start to finish piece tonight. I'll clean that out better later. Bubbles. I need a liner brush. And what I'm going to do for bubbles, they're super easy. I'm going to start with black paint. I'm going to make a half circle, or like sad face on for the tops. I'm going to kind of stagger them going up. I'm going to take a stiff brush and just smudge that down a little bit. I want the upper edge to be super harsh, but the inside can be soft a little bit. Few more of these going, and this is going to give me this kind of sparkle to the piece that I otherwise wouldn't have without these bubbles, these little highlights. And I'm just going to keep it super easy. You can do more advanced bubbles, but what I'm going to do is just black and white, and I'm letting the background of my painting show through as the transparent part. Thanks, Art by MB. You want to know, what are you using? All webcams? Yeah, I've got 2 webcams. They're the, what are they called? Oh, I can't see on this. It's the, I think it's in the video description. It's the Logitech something C3. There's an E in there somewhere. And then I'm using the webcam from the computer itself. So next stage, white paint. And I'm using my regular opaque white paint. And then we're going to connect the bottom portion of the circle to the black. And I'm just going to stick my finger in it to smudge it a little so it's not too harsh. These do not have to be perfect circles, by the way. On the bigger one, I can use a paintbrush. Just smudge a little. Itchy nose. Tamara said, have to hit the hay. It's been a fantastic night watching this lovely Tang come about. Great work as always. Night. Thanks for joining, Tamara. Okay, almost done. Get a couple down here. Where did the other one go? I lost it. It blended into the background. Oh well. Well, you can be here. And then we'll just put a dot on you for the highlight so I can tell where it is. I'm going to put that. I'm going to put a brighter dot on the bottom of all of these, and then the shine mark up top. Just a little dot there. And I curve the little shine mark a little bit if I can, if it's a big enough bubble. If it's not, then a little dot is fine. And then I'm going to put a couple of just dots, white dots, moving in between these bubbles. Had somebody on one of my videos that I was doing bubbles like this tell me that there were no bubbles in the ocean. that for some reason, I guess salt water didn't have bubbles. It's like, wow. You know, before you try to educate people or try to make, like they did it in a way that they were trying to make it sound like I was stupid. I forget how it was worded, but it was one of those where I was like, what? Yeah, there are bubbles in the ocean. That's not how that works. Kind of funny. Like, where did you even get that? Let's see. Art by MB said, I have to learn how to do this kind of setup. I had surgery 2 days ago and I need a way to teach my students from home. Oh, yes, sorry about the surgery, but yes, doing this sort of setup works good. Yeah, the webcam, I mean, the quality isn't as good. This looks way better in person than what you guys are seeing. Is a little bit on the blue side. It's a little bit more blurry. You're not seeing the same amount of details as what it looks like in person, but it's still enough. Like someone can still follow around with this. I'm going to upload this footage. Is it still recording? Yeah. To Patreon. I'm just going to throw the finished painting on it and upload it. I'm not going to do a different voiceover. So it'll just be what we've talked about on the, the live stream will be there, but I will upload this footage over there just because my good camera has a better camera quality than a webcam is going to have, but it's good enough. I mean, you can still see what I'm doing. Someone could still follow along and I think still learn plenty. Okay. A little bit more shading here, just around his eye, because he's looking a little flat in here. I keep sticking my finger in it because it's kind of an easy, fast way just to get a blended look just by smudging that paint. Now this, I do want to pull a little bit of black. Oh, and that white should actually come up quite a bit higher than what I've got it. Let's get black in the center of the eye. Now, normally I wouldn't just finish a painting in 2 hours, one sitting and call it done. And even with this, I may come back in another hour and like find something else I want to touch up. I recommend when you finish a painting or you think you're finished, take a break, come back the next day, or even if it's just 10 minutes later, go walk away from the painting. I've been sitting in front of this for too long and I'm probably missing something that I want to add to it. Well, besides signing it. So that's, don't just do it in 2 hours and then varnish it right away. Like I'll wait a day or two at least to varnish this in case I see something where I'm like, oh crap, I need to, I'm missing something that's kind of major or that I think would make it look so much better. Wow, this looks super blue. I wonder if I can fix the, hold on one second. I bet I can fix it so you could at least see the color a bit better. It's the Logitech webcam C930E is what I'm using, and I wouldn't necessarily say these are the ones to run out and buy. I'm sure there's something newer and better. They work. They're not amazing, but let's make him a little bit more accurate. The color balance was fixed earlier, but it reset itself, so that now is more like what the color of this actually looks like in person. So yeah, that is my finished painting, and well, mostly finished. I'll probably find something else to change later, but that is it for tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining. Make sure that you head over and check out our Moderators channel. Joseph and Nick both have channels linked in the video description. They've got art channels here on YouTube, so you'll want to check that out. I'm not sure what Nick's working on. I know Joseph has been playing with his new Grex Airbrush, so you can kind of learn along with him, get more airbrush tips on what he likes, doesn't like, works, doesn't work, all that fun stuff. Definitely make sure you check out both of their channels and say, thank you, because they help a lot. And yeah, that is it for tonight. Not bad for a start to finish painting. I'm certain I'm going to find little touch-ups here and there, but that is it for tonight. And I will see you guys next week, where I'm pretty sure I'm going to be painting another fish. Just getting ready for this show. I figured, we'll kill two birds with one fish. No, I shouldn't say that after killing my shrimp. Oh, I didn't do it on purpose. I tried to save them. I really did. It's going to take me a while to get over that one. Anyway, I will see you guys next week. Bye. If I can find the thing to stop the live stream.